Craig, you not have a camera?
Thought it was on earlier.
I can
It's
see
on.
him.
I can see him.
Says it's on.
Oh, and just no policy that allows us to do that.
I'm a little uncomfortable with the last paragraph. And frankly, I don't have any problems with the first one. But
No, but there's no policy, Craig, that allows us to do that. So why would you open that up right now?
We are live.
okay. 7:05, and we'll call this meeting to order. Please accept our apologies for being a few minutes late due to a executive session held prior to tonight's meeting. Roll call, Mr. Enders.
Mr. Becker.
Here.
Mr. Brungard.
Here.
Mrs. Dobler.
Here.
Mrs. Grant.
Here.
Mr. Kinley.
Here.
Mrs. Petrosky.
Here.
Mrs. Stemler.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Allen.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Okay. We can shut all the mics off except for mine. And we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Okay, move on to approval of minutes. We have the minutes for the regular meeting of June 8th, which was held virtually, and minutes for the June 22nd meeting, which was held kind of a hybrid model. There were 2 members that were in virtual and the rest of us here on site. Any question? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Second.
Is that Mr. Brungard?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Treasurer's report, June 2020 Treasurer's report and 2020 June investment report. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mary.
Second. Wayne.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Approval of bills totaling $5,292,855.25. Could I have a motion?
So moved, Mary.
Thank you.
Second. Wayne.
Any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Communications, Dr. Ulmer.
You're muted.
I don't have anything for under communications, Mr. President.
Okay. President's report. I have, I believe, anything to report a president's report other than attending a lot of Zoom meetings and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure everybody's doing.
Okay, I lost everything.
Are you back?
We hear ya.
Mr. Brungard, are you returned?
There he
I
is.
can see him.
We see your video, Mr. Oh,
But
there
now
he
he
is.
says he's leaving.
Taking his football and going home. Mr. Brungard, are you back?
I'm back.
Okay. Intermediate unit report, Mrs. Petrosky.
I don't have anything to report. We're meeting this Wednesday coming up.
Okay. Superintendent's report, Dr. Ulmer.
Two things under my report. First of all, Keystone exam waiver. This, according to PDE, you do not have to take action on this, but it must be discussed at a public meeting. So I put this under my report. According to the Pennsylvania Department of Education's federal waiver because of the coronavirus, any student who was scheduled to take a Keystone exam in the spring, we have the authority to not require that student to have to retake that exam in the next school year. I am going to enact that clause of the waiver because those students did not finish those classes in the spring. I don't want them to have to come back in the fall, be in a completely different class, and have to go back and retake the test of a class that they had part of in the spring. And one of the other reasons that I want to do that is because if we did require all students to retake that test, we would have to allow any parent who didn't want their kid to retake that test automatically to opt out, and they would not have to follow the typical opt-out procedures by writing a letter. They would just have to say, I don't want my kid to do it. So if we did require a retake, we essentially would be doing a whole lot of work for a lot of parents probably to say, well, I don't want my kid to do that anyway. So I do have to say publicly that we are not going to require those kids who are scheduled in the spring to retake that exam. And they do, just so that you're aware, they can use the other opt-out procedures and still, if they need it, meet graduation requirements without taking a Keystone exam. They can have a CTE pathway. They can use the alternate pathway. There's other things they can do if they're in that cohort that has to have something to graduate. Yeah, and Dr. Dady just reminded me they do have the option to opt in if they want to retake it and they want to do a test that they were scheduled for and didn't get to, they can opt in by that clause. Questions about that?
So there's no negatives to any of our students that you're aware of?
No.
Does that count only for Keystone exams, or can that also be for the CTE exam, for the NOCTI exams?
They would only have been taking NOCTIs if they were at the end of their program.
Also, those kids graduated.
So those kids graduated. And the second thing under my report is I did, as I said in my update, give you copies of those first couple policies. I said we were going to start working through policies. I will take any questions if you have now, or you can send me questions. This, by the way, is not a first read. This is just me presenting you policies that have been updated by PSBA to be in compliance with new law. And as I said, we're working through a couple at a time. You will see these presented in my report first. And then if there are no questions or edits that anyone has, you will see this set as a first read at the August 10th meeting.
So do you prefer us to ask you questions, or do you prefer us to email you?
I think for sake of the time, you could just email me any comments or questions you have now, and we can make edits to those prior to first read.
Okay. I can do that.
Any other questions about that? I will, Mr. President, have a couple other things under this miscellaneous section before we discuss the health and safety plan.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Do we have any addendums for this evening?
We do not.
Okay, so we will not need an executive session prior to moving through the agenda. And we'll move into courtesy of the floor. Mr. McCormick could open up the phones and announce our phone number.
Remember, Mr. President, we put the phone number out and asked people to call us and ask if they wanted to be contacted. I did not receive any calls from people who wanted to public call during courtesy of the floor.
Any objection to giving anybody 5 minutes time in case somebody did not read that announcement?
That's fine.
That was at 7:15. We'll go to 7:20, waiting for anyone to call in. And then after that, we'll move on.
Is it 1561?
Or unless anybody makes a motion, we move on sooner.
As a reminder, the number, if anyone is out there wanting to make a call, the number is 570-398-1561. Again, if you are trying to contact courtesy of the floor, 570-398-5576, according to Patrick. 570-398-5576.
Okay, you're live to the board.
Hello.
Yes, if you could please state your name and where you're calling, what address you're from.
Yes, I'm Bert, B-U-R-T, first name Francis, F-R-N-C-I-S, last name calling from 1425 Locust Street, Jersey Shore, PA.
Francis. Can you hold on 1 second, please?
Yeah, sure.
I'm being told we have a call, but I don't hear anyone on the call. Caller, are you there?
Mr. Francis, can you, Dr. Ulmer,
Yes, I'm here.
can you hear me, Dr. Ulmer?
Yep, I can. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Francis on the line. Go ahead, Mr. Francis, it's all yours.
Dr. Elmer, Bert Francis calling. How are you tonight?
I'm great, Bert. How are you?
Good. I'm having trouble hearing you, though. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm great. I'm always good. Yeah, just a couple quick. If we're going to have courtesies of the floor, sometimes we have 2 sessions, beginning and ending. Then I'm thinking that no business should be conducted prior to any courtesy of the floor, or talked about or discussed about. How are we now answering questions of fact? Are we using the FAQ process yet, that we direct our questions to the president of the board, then he directs them to you, and then you will answer them through the FAQ? Is that the way we're doing business now? Hello?
So, I can hear you. Sorry, I was conferring. My understanding is if we can answer the question in the meeting and it's factual, we do our best to answer. If not, we do our best to get you the answer by the next meeting.
Okay, very good. You guys have been doing a great job. I appreciate everything the school board does, and we got the greatest district in the state of Pennsylvania. Let's keep it that way. Thank you very much, Dr. Ulmer. All right.
Thank you, Francis.
Okay. We're past 7:20, so unless there's another call coming in, we'll move on. Okay, personnel items. We have item A through item AE. So we went around the alphabet and then some. Could I have a motion to approve personnel items?
So moved, Mary.
I'll second.
Second, Eric.
That Angela got in first?
Oh, just let her have one.
Okay, any questions, comments, or corrections on any of that? Okay, if there are no questions, could I have a roll call vote, Mr. Enders?
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Berngard,
Yes.
Mrs. Dobler,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Kinley,
Yes.
Mrs. Petrosky,
Yes.
Mrs. Stemler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, curriculum instruction. We have item A, approving a modification of our Jersey Shore online policy. Could I have a motion?
So moved, Mary.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments, corrections?
I do have a question for how will it work for the K through 6 with the JSAL? Will there be teachers with the intermediate unit that will be teaching the kids, or are they going to be online with their own teacher?
So to begin, we do have the ability to purchase the curriculum and with our partnership use IU provided teachers. We can look at numbers of kids and where we have potentially, if we have a large chunk of kids select this and we can free up one of our teachers to facilitate the courses, you can buy the courses either way, with a teacher or without a teacher. You can essentially contract or use your own.
Okay. And then where you crossed out the Northeast Intermediate Unit 19 and put capital area Intermediate Unit 15, was that because that's what the IU works with them?
Yeah.
Now
Well,
instead of the other one?
I asked why Northeast was on there, and they couldn't tell me. They said it's always been capital area, and they were confused why that was there to begin with.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Hearing no further questions, Mr. Enders, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mrs. Berngard, Mr. Berngard, sorry.
Thanks a lot, buddy. Yes.
Mrs. Dobler,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Kinley,
Yes.
Mrs. Petrosky,
Yes.
Mrs. Stemler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, something under building and grounds, finance, we have item A. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second, Nancy.
Any questions, comments, corrections?
Could somebody explain what this program is about and who sees, CCA, what does that stand for?
The program is, this is the Lycoming Clinton CCA, and I apologize, I don't know the acronym for CCA off the top of my head right now, but they are the ones that run the Head Start program, and that is housed at Drury Shore Elementary. And we provide those kiddos a breakfast and a lunch every day. So we bill Lycoming Clinton CCA, and then they turn around and seek reimbursement from the Commonwealth. And in order for them to get reimbursed, they need to have this agreement needs to be in place between the two of us. That allows us to provide them food service.
Now, do they pick up the meals or do?
I believe they're delivered to the classroom. I believe. I don't believe they eat in the cafeteria.
Okay.
Any other questions? Somebody start to say something? Sorry.
I just said thank you to Ben.
Okay. Okay, hearing no further questions, do we have a roll call up, Mr. Enders?
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Berngard,
Yes.
Mrs. Dobler,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Kinley,
Yes.
Mrs. Petrosky,
Yes.
Mrs. Stemler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, moving on to miscellaneous. Could I have a motion to approve miscellaneous items A through I?
So moved, Mary.
Second, Wayne.
Any questions, comments, corrections? Or
Mr. President, before we vote on this section, I do want to point out that I is the district's health and safety plan. There are two things that I would like to show the board that the community will get tomorrow. I do want to say before I do that I am presenting for approval the district's health and safety plan. Before I do that, I do want to make a statement to the community. I recognize that no matter what happens this school year, there's a potential that someone gets sick. In the eyes of some people, we will never do enough, and in the eyes of others, we're doing too much. This plan that I'm presenting seeks to give parents options and make choices about what's best for them and their families. This board and administrative team and I have never done this before. No board, no administrator, and no superintendent has ever been in this situation. There's no established procedure. There's no experts we can pick up the phone and call because they did it before or last year or the year before that. We've engaged medical professionals, stakeholders. We've networked around the region and the state. We've consulted with the School Boards Association, the State Administrators Association, and the State Teachers Association. We've reviewed plans from other districts. We've made every attempt to be as safe as we can and still open our doors. I'm asking that we be patient and we understand what we are trying to implement as school opens. As we plan to reopen, we are all struggling with new orders and new guidance that changes almost every day. This plan could be obsolete tomorrow with one new governor's order, but we'll continue to adjust the plan. We have 2 more board meetings before school that we can make changes if we need to make changes. But I want to show today 2 things that the community will see tomorrow. First of all, on my screen, you can see the health and safety report. That report, or the health and safety plan information, talks about the 30 people that were stakeholders that created this plan, that outlines the sections of the plan, including cleaning, sanitizing, infecting, and procedures. We did meet as a pandemic team 5 times for over 10 hours since June 15th. We are required to have a plan to open schools in the fall. Tomorrow, this plan, once approved, will be posted on the website and submitted to PDE. This team process used stakeholder groups such as PDE guidance, State Association guidance, the Department of Health guidance, Geisinger, and other school district plans. You will also see tomorrow this document will be shared with families. As I said in the plan, we are giving you obviously the in-person opportunity, the virtual opportunity, and allowing for parents to select a hybrid option in consultation with their principal. I gave information about Jersey Shore Online Learning in this document that parents will receive tomorrow. And as we stated with the pandemic team, we are going to ask parents to make a commitment for the first marking period to one of these options. If that is in person, then we would ask that you commit to that for the marking period unless something happens. I did receive a board member question about contract tracing and closing schools if we would have cases. And I pulled guidance from the Department of Ed today to answer that question. The Department of Ed is telling us that contract tracing and notification are the job of the Department of Health. They gave us phone numbers as a school to contact if someone in our school would become sick or show symptoms. We would make that contact to Department of Health. They're required to complete contract tracing, and they're required to consult with the school district about how to respond to that case or that person who has symptoms. It does say in that guidance, the Department of Health will be the one who monitors transmission rates and surveillance metrics across the Commonwealth, including in schools. And based on that surveillance, they will issue guidance related to school closures that are targeted within districts or within individual schools. So it will not be you as a board or me as a superintendent who ultimately makes that decision. I will make it in collaboration with the Department of Health. So to answer that question that we keep getting, PDE has made that Department of Health's job to make those decisions. Any questions about that information?
Okay, and just to backtrack a little bit, we did receive a email today from actually a former student member of the board who asked for his statement to be included in courtesy of the floor. And looking at the contents of the email, it relates to the district reopening plan. So I feel obligated, we advertised on the website that we would accept written comments, just as we've amended certain aspects of our regular board meeting procedural processes. And I'll read the email regarding the reopening plan now. Good afternoon, Dr. Ulmer and board members. For those who don't know me, I am a 2017 graduate of Jersey Shore Area School District and served as a student rep during that year as well. I am relocating back to the area, but I am currently 3 hours away today and will be tuning into the live stream. If possible, please enter this email into the public comment time. I was appalled today to find out that the meeting tonight in which Jersey Shore Area School District will determine the best course of action for our up-and-coming students is to be held virtually. Not because I'm against keeping anyone safe, because it is my top priority and should be yours as well, but because this meeting should be a dead giveaway of what the best course of action is for this upcoming school year. If the meeting to determine whether it is safe to send our students back is held virtually because of the health and safety of the administration, it is clear that the reopening plan should include flexible but mostly virtual options to best protect the health and safety of our treasured students. Tonight, when you are all making these decisions, I ask from the bottom of my heart that each and every one of you put your personal political thoughts aside and consider only the facts and the guidance presented by CDC, the Commonwealth's Department of Health, and the Department of Education. We must do this safely, efficiently, and cautiously to protect all involved, from the students up to the executive administration. So that will be added to the public comment, the first public comment regarding agenda items.
Dr. Ulmer, I have follow-up questions. So I'm being asked several questions from members of our community. And I think some of it we've touched on a little bit. Excuse me. I just kind of want to build on what Mrs. Petrosky said earlier, just for clarification. So if we have an elementary student that chooses to go online, our brick and mortar, if you will, are those teachers teaching that online student, or will they go through the BLAST model?
So I'm gonna pull that document back up that I showed so that I make sure I'm clear. If you choose in person, that's with our teachers. If you choose hybrid, notice it says here, it will be in collaboration with the principal and the family to determine what that looks like. because everybody's situation is different, that student would still, when they come in with our teacher. If you decide to be completely virtual and not come in at all, that is where we would use JSAL. And if we can use our teachers in some cases, we're ready for that, and we will. But especially in the elementary, we're not ready to use our teachers for a completely virtual platform. But I'm comfortable saying we could, over here in a hybrid, if that student's coming in every other day, and that's what that family chooses, or part of a day, that I believe our teachers can handle. Where I would like to work to be quickly to the potential of an completely virtual option with our teachers in the event that we need to be there if we're ordered to be closed. But I don't believe that where our teachers are ready for that on day one.
Okay, my next question is, and I apologize if I missed this, how long do parents have to make the choice what option they're going with?
So we are going to turn that survey on tomorrow if this plan is approved. I did not yet set an end date because I really didn't talk about that with the administrative team yet. I wanted to get it out to parents as soon as possible. We're asking that they make a commitment for the first marking period. So I would say minimally, my gut reaction to that is middle of August, to give us 2 weeks to get ready for whatever it is that those parents pick. But we'll obviously watch that data as it's coming in to begin to plan.
All right. And a follow-up. So as you know, one of our outlying elementary schools has an air conditioning issue. And I know that this was brought through email, but I just want to make it public because I'm being asked and it's a hot topic as it pertains to the mask and the heat with the outlying elementary school. Can you address that, please?
So that is a concern that I have as well. I don't have a lot of really good solutions for that. One concern that I have is even if we as a board said we wanted to make accommodations to that building before day one, I don't know that we would even be able to get someone to come in here and do that work in a month. So what we can offer is parents do have that hybrid option or the virtual option. And that would ask for a commitment for the first marking period, which is probably when I think it's going to be the biggest issue. But yes, you're right. There is no air conditioning in that building, and that is a concern. I don't have a very good answer to that question.
Yeah.
I have a question if Angela's finished.
Go ahead.
All right, just to follow up on, I don't really understand the hybrid. Students are going to be able to come in and schedule their classes with one of the teachers within the school district at any time, or how is that actually working? Can you explain that, Brian, please?
So what we're trying to train teachers, and we've been training teachers since school closed back in March, is to be more and more familiar with virtual, using the computer, using the LMS like Schoology in the high school. And teachers did a good job at the high school, middle school, getting as much as they could available to kids online. So what we're offering to families who are concerned about bringing their kids back in the building is, if your kid, for the good example that I have is, if say your kid is in CTE, and they really do need to be here for that, but they could take the rest of their courses, if their teachers have them prepared virtually through the computer, maybe that family would be more comfortable if that kid only came in for CTE, did that, and went home.
So they'll, if they do the CTE classes, if they have like a math class, they could do that at home virtually?
Correct.
Are the teachers, in other words, it's going to be the actual course that's being taught within our school district? Are the teachers on board with this? I didn't think they were before. All of a sudden they're on board?
What I saw, I don't want to reveal that, but what I'm saying is, if they're planning virtually and they're making their lessons and their resources electronic. Whether the kid is in front of them or at home, both kids should have access to the same information. So I don't want teachers to plan for one group of kids in the building and one group of kids at home. I want one plan that everybody can access.
Are they going to be virtual the same time that actual class is being taken within the school? Are they going to be online at the same time, or is it going to be a different time period, or how, am I asking?
No, I understand what you're asking. You're asking, I think, if we're going to be videoing them into the classroom. And they would see the teacher while class was happening. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
I don't know that that would happen in all cases. We would have to look at what that individual student has. And that is a teacher comfort level, having a camera in their individual classroom.
Okay, so I'm just concerned because I'll just let it go. I'm thinking hopefully everything's under control. I just want to make sure that the association is on board with this.
I will make sure to have that conversation, Mr. Brungard.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Back to Angela's question about the heat at Salisbury and no air conditioning. Could we get units? I mean, like mobile units that you can move from classroom to classroom of air conditioners?
I don't know if I have an answer to that.
Something to think about.
The portable units still have to be vented, so it's not that we can wheel them in and just let them run in a room. They have to be vented somewhere. And if we bought one per classroom, we would have to seriously consider the electrical system in that building and whether or not it could handle it.
Okay.
But I will make a note, and I will talk to Mr. Wall about that.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
Does Salisbury still have the univents?
Yes.
Yes.
So I wouldn't think that the portable air conditioner would take any more juice in the summertime than the heat would in the wintertime then. Normally it takes you more electricity to heat things up than to cool them off.
Doesn't it the heat come from the boiler, it circulates to the univent, then blows up? It's not heating in the univent itself, I don't think. But you'd have to check with Mr. Wall on that. That's why they have the boiler, to heat the water circulate. But check with Mr. Wall.
And there are still some classrooms that are unoccupied at Salisbury too as well, right?
Yes.
So we wouldn't need them for those rooms. Any other questions?
This is fluid, correct? As we discussed before, meaning this has to be voted on for PDE, but if there's a mandate that changes tomorrow, then this changes accordingly as well.
Correct.
This is Francis quickly. The way the plans are developed and the guidance that the districts are getting when they're developing those plans is to recognize to not make the language so stringent or dedicated towards one plan, because the idea is the face of this is ever changing. And so what Dr. Omer said earlier, what we know today could very well change tomorrow. What comes out of the Department of Health, the Governor's Office, PDE, the CDC, all of the regulatory agencies that are kind of telling us how we should be dealing with this, especially when it comes to our student population.
Also, as part of the plan, it also has a yellow phase and a green phase. So there are definitely two distinct phases and directions. One is more stringent. The yellow would be more stringent. The green is more open. And at this point, we are in a green phase, but that can change at any time. And if we ever go to the red phase, then they'd be closing schools.
Correct. as which you'll hear a lot of administrators say, your job is easy when it comes to deciding what to do in the green phase. It's easy to decide what to do when you're in the red phase. It's trying to figure out what's best for your student population in your district when you're in the yellow phase.
And I'm sorry, Dr. Omer, one more, and then I think that was through my list. I was asked about liability. So does our district have liability as long as we're doing everything that we can following the CDC guidelines? Can you go into that for me? Sorry.
It's okay. So I was chuckling because the solicitor was sitting next to me when you asked the liability question. I did do a PSBA webinar last week on liability. Our best bet to avoid liability is to write a plan that's in compliance with current mandates and make every attempt to supervise that plan and make sure we're doing the best we can to stay inside the current mandates. The liability comes in when we don't do what we're required to by current regulations, and we don't actively supervise what we say we're going to do per our plan.
Are we going to ask parents to sign waivers for children? That they acknowledge what you just said? I know some places have done that before. I'm just asking.
No, we don't have a plan for waivers. We did discuss that at the pandemic team level. The issue that I have with that is we have to provide a free and appropriate public education. So if I ask you to waive your rights to liability to walk in the door, then I've just put a barrier to free and appropriate public education.
Okay.
It's not like sports where they're optional and we can ask you to sign a waiver, or daycare where you could go to another daycare. We're it.
Well, no, I was looking more from the teacher perspective, like to protect our staff more than.
I have another question. Sorry. Will we supply face masks and the shields and all of that for the teachers and anybody that works there and the students?
That is all part of that health and safety grant funding that Harry asked about, or Wayne asked about before.
Yes.
Do you have any left for personnel? Well, not really, because we're trying to buy masks and face shields and cleaning equipment and all that kind of stuff.
What about hand sanitizer, like for in the bathrooms? Yes.
We bought a lot of
All
hand
that.
sanitizer.
I'll bet. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think my wife was in a meeting with a different group last week, and there was a school district that had purchased something like 140,000 masks for their students. Obviously, it must have been a big district, but that's what they use a lot of their CARES money for.
Okay.
So Dr. Omer, just a clarification, the health and safety plan that we're passing tonight is not the one that's presently on the website?
I did add the new one from tonight onto the website this afternoon.
Okay.
Was attached to the agenda as of last Friday, but just in case anybody couldn't find it on the agenda, I did this afternoon have it put on the website. It is there now.
Thank you.
Is it its own link, or is it still within the document you provided?
It is its own link right in the middle of the page.
So basically,
Therefore,
anybody
if
can
you, as
get
a
on it
parent
with
who
2
read
clicks.
this previous to today, you want to go out and check the updates.
I did get Mr. Wall must be listening. Let me know that we do, even if we put air conditioners in there, still have to run those univents to bring in outdoor air. I forgot about that. They bring in outdoor air and would still have to pump in so much outdoor air. So they would still be running in addition to portable air conditioners.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you. I have another question. Because of the mandates of no more than 25 people in a room at a time, that does not affect the teachers and the classrooms. Is that right? So I understand.
That was a Department of Health guideline, and that came out, and we kind of scrambled for 24 hours. And then PDE issued updated guidance that said that does not apply to classroom and instructional school environments. But then they excluded things like faculty meetings, board meetings, extracurricular events. So if there are 26 kids in a classroom with a teacher, that doesn't apply. But when school ends, I can't put 26 adults in a classroom for a meeting.
Dr. Ulmer, if we have a teacher that tests positive for COVID-19, what would happen to the children? I'm sorry, this one's just coming to mind. What would happen to the students in that classroom? I mean, obviously a substitute, but in the grand scheme of things, in the bigger world, we're all supposed to stay 14 days. So can you answer that for me, please?
That's back to that conversation about the Department of Health. They would investigate and determine, did that person have sustained contact with those kids? When did they come into contact with somebody who had it? How long were they in school before they tested positive? That they're going to make that decision and come to us and say, do those kids need to quarantine? Do they all need to be tested? That's a medical decision that the Department of Health has to make.
And in your experience, what do you think the turnaround on that will be, though?
Yeah.
I had a phone call today actually with Geisinger regarding testing, and they echoed again what is in our plan, that we should be calling the COVID hotline, because if tests have to be done, they're going to be able to tell us where the best place is to go. That, for instance, maybe there's a lot of people testing in one area and not another, and they can advise families go here and it'll be quicker, type of conversation. So in our plan, it does say contact the Geisinger COVID hotline, and they echoed again today. That is the best course of action, because they will know best how to respond and where that person or that family should go.
Just for clarification, could you go over the implications for the absentee limits?
For students?
Yes.
So one of the concerns that I keep getting is student absences, and what if they're required to quarantine, and how does that affect their attendance? We keep bringing that up at the superintendent level with legislators. They have not changed school code. They have not changed the first 10 days being a parent excuse. What I advise, though, is if you call the hotline and they send you to a doctor and you get a note, a doctor's note is handled a little differently than a parent writing an excuse. So it is to your benefit to go through that process and see a doctor or get tested and have a doctor's note saying you need to quarantine, because then it's different than your parent writing a note and saying you're sick. And your solicitor just said that PD's recommending we be as liberal as possible, but again, no one has changed school code. And Mrs. Grant, that's where that hybrid model comes in, that if that student on the resolution that we're we're passing in this section of the agenda, giving us the ability to use a hybrid model, that student, if they're quarantined at home, if they're still accessing education, that can count as a school day for them. That's where that hybrid model becomes important, because if you're just home because you're quarantining, because maybe a family member was tested and you can't come to school, but you could access education, I then could count that as a school day and not mark that kid absent.
Okay, thank you.
In that case, though, with the hybrid, and they say you are tested and you have to use the hybrid, is it just a matter of contacting the school and going into the hybrid? You don't have to wait to the end of the marking period or anything like that, right?
So what we said as a pandemic team was that we're going to ask you to make a commitment for a marking period, but if the situation changes, we can talk to that. That's why we have an individual family contact with the principal, because that's where the principal could say, yep, that's a situation where we need to make a change.
Okay. Now, I'm going to food, which is important to a lot of the students. With the cafeteria situation, and it says all food will be served to students, like how will you do that, like say in the high school or even the middle school, where they have different options of what they can get? You know, you don't pick or choose a specific meal, you know, you can, but you can get what you want to get. So how would you do that with serving it to the student?
So according to food service, my understanding of the food being served is the students are still able to pick, but they can't have, for instance, like a bar where they go through and they serve themselves. So they can still pick what items they want, but the cafeteria food service worker is going to have to put that item onto the student's tray and not allow the student to be picking up food off of a tray where another student's going to be coming through and picking up food off of that same serving area.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I do want to, Dr. Dady just reminded me, we did do that family survey and we took questions from parents. Once this plan is approved, tomorrow the parent questions will be all answered, that the ones we got so far will be answered on one document on that page that we're going to populate. It's ready to go. But we answered all parent questions based on the current plan language. So once the plan is approved, tomorrow those FAQs will be posted. So if you see something, if you have an additional question after that, we'll answer more questions, but all the ones we got are answered, ready for tomorrow based on what the current plan document says.
Okay, that sounds good.
I just wanted to say that so any parents out there listening knew that was coming.
Dr. Ulmer, this is Michelle.
Hello?
Oh, I don't have any questions for you, but I did want to just make a statement, and I wanted to commend you and the team for all of their time and effort and the thoughtfulness of planning these options for our students. I mean, ultimately, you have given parents the freedom to choose some options that they feel is best for their families. And I do greatly appreciate that. I think that it's imperative for our children to return to school because it's not just about their academic learning, but we need to be conscious of the overall well-being of the children of our community. And so I greatly appreciate all that you've done, and I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions about the plan? Okay, thank you.
I just have a question for the solicitor for a recommendation. Would you prefer that we do a separate roll call on the plan, on the reopening plan, that's different than the other items on the agenda?
Yeah, I would
On
put the plan separately, Mr. Allen.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on any other items outside of the plan that we just discussed?
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
I can't recall which letter it is, but it's for the athletics. The family
ID?
That's it. Up until this point, I haven't heard anything. Maybe it was me that I just missed it, but I didn't catch it. Is this the first time that as a board we've even seen this proposal in essence, or was there something prior to this that I just missed?
I think this is the first time we've seen it. Is that not correct, Dr. Ulmer?
That you are correct. The only thing that you would have heard prior to this is in my update saying that this was coming. This would be a system essentially for families to be able to register and sign their kid up for athletics online so that you didn't have to come into the building and go through that process with every other family that was signing a kid up for athletics.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment that I thought that this was a very well thought out and put together kind of, I guess you could say, of a sign up outside of, having to do paper forms, the 10-page athletic form, all of that, what goes into that. I think this is a nice alternative. And I just wanted to commend Serena. I'm not sure where this came from. Maybe it was something she had seen, if she had any input on this, but I thought this was a very nice alternative for what it is you have to do to sign up currently. So I think it's really good. It's a great idea.
Will families still be able to come in and sign up at the schools, like in person, or is this replacing that process?
This would be a replacement, and one of the conversations that I had with her is Patrick is, if needed, we will make devices available for families, but don't forget that most of the kids will have a device. So if mom or dad needs a device to use, and my conversation with them was, we will make space available in the district office if a family needs a space to come in and do that. But the reason that schools are going this route is because of that, bringing additional adults into the building to go through that process.
Because it also increases the cost by $3.50, right? So almost a 10% increase in cost to your yearly fee is going to go from $40 to $43.50 if you're a one sport athlete. Right, because this company's going to charge $350.
I think it's $350 per family, if you have more than one, but.
Right. Yes, you are correct. $350 per family.
So you could have multiple sports and multiple athletes, and it would still only be the $3.50.
Can you change it after the fact? Like here at the beginning of school, can you register for football and then at the end of football season say, hey, I'm going to play basketball, or do you have to pay another $350 to re-register? Or do you have to know everything you're doing up front?
It says a process fee of $350 per season. So if it's per season, I would think you'd have to pay it again for basketball. We'll pay it again for if you're in track in spring.
Well, one question, hold on one second. I have Serena, I'm gonna ask her that question.
Okay, to answer Mr. Becker's question, that is an option to cover the cost to the district. We don't have to charge that, and we can pay the full amount that they want to charge, and I can take it out of my budget. That just kind of passes it on. It can be optional.
So
The
the,
$350 per season, for a family, you would need like 500 families to cover the 1745, right?
Off the top of my head and not doing the math.
Close.
Well, I just divided 1745 by 350. And
But then divide that by 3, because there's 3 sports seasons.
Well, yeah, but in total, there would have to be 500 units, you might say, for all the seasons, yes.
so the way the agenda item reads is that we would be using currently approved athletic budget to pay for this program. So we have, if that's what we want to do, we don't have to adjust the agenda, and we will have to fully fund that with athletic funds. If we want to pass any cost along to families, we would have to adjust that agenda item.
That $3.50 can be anything we want it to be, anywhere from 0, and we fund the full amount ourselves. Or we can make it $5 process fee to put a little bit extra into athletics. It can be whatever we want it to be.
So I guess I'm asking, what is the will of the board? Do we leave it that we're paying the total cost, or would you like to adjust the agenda item?
A question for for Dr. Ulmer. Could we vote on this as is tonight and then go back and change our process next meeting or the meeting after or in the fall to accommodate the additional charge? Give Serena a little bit more time to decide whether she wants to charge, $1 and offset some of the cost, or take it completely out of her budget.
I think we could, at some point, we could say in the future, we're going to enact a charge after a given date. But I think you're right in the way this is worded. I'm more comfortable saying we're going to purchase this program, we're going to roll it out, and if we feel like it's burdensome costs, we can make a change in the future.
I think the 1745 is money well spent for what we're going to get, and eliminating a lot of the burden on staff to deal with all the paperwork.
And if we approve it as is tonight, it gives Serena and her team of coaches a season to kind of work out the bugs, where parents are saying, well, I'm paying $3.50 for this and it doesn't work, or it doesn't work the way I expected it would. So I think giving it a season to debug is not really a bad idea.
Okay. Thank you, Serena.
Not a problem. Thank you.
So we'll leave item H as is for now then. Any other questions on A through H? Okay, hearing none, could we have a roll call on A through H, Mr. Enders?
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Berngard,
Yes.
Mrs. Dobler,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Kinley,
Yes.
Mrs. Petrosky,
Yes.
Mrs. Stemler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
9-0.
Any last call for any additional questions on item I? Okay, hearing none, we have a roll call, Mr. Enders.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Mr. Brungard,
Yes.
Mrs. Dobler,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Kinley,
Yes.
Mrs. Petrosky,
Yes.
Mrs. Stemler,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, that concludes that agenda item. Nothing in old business. We accepted courtesy of the floor in the first courtesy of the floor session. So we'll move into executive session for further discussion. I think the topic, Mr. Becker had some further discussion on a topic we hadn't finished in the earlier session. So, and after we come out of executive session, there'll be no additional business conducted.
Okay, give me a second to confirm that we're no longer live.
I need to take a break though.